What's up, everybody? We're live, and I am sharing with you guys some content which was meant for our LinkedIn Insider members, and with the permission, I am sharing it with you guys. This is a LinkedIn lead generation webinar. So if you have been looking to grow your business on social media, generate more leads for your business, this is some content that you won't find anywhere else, and I hope you find it valuable. We're going to talk about how to build your brand on LinkedIn, how you can grow your influence, build trust, some of the things which are happening in 2020 that you can leverage to generate more leads. By all means, as we go, since we're live, you can drop your comments with any questions that you may have that I can address as we go. Hey, Karen, thanks for jumping on. Okay, so for starters, I want to talk about the fact that some of these things which you see popping up on the screen here are not effective anymore. The statistics are cold calling is effective 1% of the time, mainly because you've got to tell people who you are and why you're calling, you're interrupting them. And the days of interrupting people, as most of us know, hi Brian, how you going? As most of us know, are pretty much over. Networking is something I used to do, 5-6 years ago, maybe even more than that. And I still see quite a few people doing it, and, catching up with 20 people every week for breakfast and having one-on-one meetings and individual catch-ups with people that can give you referrals. When these days you can connect with 660 million people on LinkedIn. I mean, that's the potential of it. That's the size of the networking group. And you can be very specific with who you catch up with. So who's the ideal referral partner? If you're in financial services, it may be a mortgage broker or a lawyer or real estate. These days, word of mouth has become obsolete. Word of mouth and online reputation has surpassed it. Xavier, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Exhibitions, also a very outbound activity. You want to look at inbound activities where people can come to you when they already have a need established. Excuse me. So the world's changed. It's fundamentally changed because we can reach everyone in it. There's no more restrictions. You can't just sell to the people in your neighborhood. This also presents a challenge because it means that there's more competition. Okay, so everyone's a competitor and everyone's a potential customer. So you've really got to be good at online marketing in order to be effective. Now, the problem is our attention span is less than a goldfish now, which is like 3 to 4 seconds. So as marketers, and I'm guilty of this as well, what we do, hey, Priyanka, thanks for joining us, is we try to hack attention. We make shorter videos, we use punchier copywriting, we use subtitles, so you don't even have to turn the audio on to watch our videos. But the problem is our customers aren't goldfish, they're human beings. And so meanwhile, every time, we add another hack or we try to trick the algorithm or we do all these things to try and hack our way to attention, we can sacrifice the actual human aspects, which is building value and building a relationship with the audience. So it's not just about getting attention. There is such thing as bad attention as well as good attention. So I think that this is the main challenge that people are struggling with. And people don't buy from people chasing you down the street with billboards and special offers. So hammering what you do into people all day long is not actually going to work anymore. It used to, to a certain extent, like if you had a database of 10,000 people and you hammered them, you would get some sales. These days, that doesn't work at all. You don't want to be this girl, this social media stalker who's going to track people down, add them on every platform. How do you export all your email addresses from LinkedIn to add them to your email database? Why? So you can email people that haven't asked to hear from you? That's not the right question. That's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, how do I get everybody on LinkedIn to want to hear from me, to want to subscribe? Because I'll tell you right now, it's a lot easier to sell to somebody that wants to hear from you than somebody that you're interrupting. And so actually reverse engineering value is the key. And I think the longer we spend time on hacks, how to hack the algorithm, how to hack engagement, how to get the email addresses, the less time you are spending time on how to actually add value to your audience. Yeah, Karen, I agree with you. It drives me nuts when somebody tries to spam me as well. But I mean, I ended up removing them from my network generally if I've got the time to do it. So, you know, at the end of the day, the market does decide and work it out. There was a time when I was getting a lot more views on my content, a lot more engagement, and I actually had a much bigger email address. Email list, sorry, but there was less conversions at the end of it because it wasn't targeted enough. I was focusing on, you know, a very watered down audience, and what they were engaging with is not necessarily the same thing as my target audience would engage with. Afghan, thanks for joining us. Hey, Adam, how you doing? What is the connection request messaging strategy to outreach first and then assess the quality of those leads? We've just got the question here. I'll just pop it up on the screen. Because it greatly differs between each stage of the buyer's process. Yeah, absolutely. I think that relevancy is the key to the connection request, right? So depending on who it is, what can make that contact relevant? So if it's, you know, you look at their profile and they've got mutual connections with you, or you've heard them mentioned somewhere, then that's the relevancy that you can mention. If they're at different stages of the buying process and you know that they already established a need, you can be very direct. If they say on the profile, you know, I'm an investor and I'm looking for investment opportunities, and you've got one, be very direct. So it's about having, you know, the context of why you're approaching them, but not based on what you want, based on the value that they're going to get out of it. So you don't want to assume what they will find valuable. If you can see what they'll find valuable on their profile, then you can say something. But otherwise, it's more, I've looked at your profile. What you do seems very interesting to me. You don't necessarily have to tell them why, but you can tell them why. This is interesting to me. I've worked in similar fields in the past. What I'd love to do is find out more about what you're doing, because if I find out more about what you're doing, then I can see if there's an opportunity for me to add value, to find out what you think is valuable, and then I can see if that's what I provide. People will be very receptive to that. My LinkedIn algorithm article was a 24-minute read according to LinkedIn. Attention span is long when the value is there. Andy Foote, absolutely, mate. Sorry, I'll share that with you as well. I'm just getting used to these features. So like when somebody watches a video, after 10 seconds, the average on social media across the board is 50% of people have stopped watching. After 1 minute, it's 80% of people have stopped watching. Doesn't mean people don't watch 10-minute, 20-minute videos. It just means that it's got to be good, because the minute you start to lose people, the minute they tune off. So I hope you stay with us for the rest of the webinar. All right. Stage 5 clingers. We don't want to be a stage 5 clinger when you're prospecting. You've got to reverse engineer the value. You've got value to provide to people that have the problem that you solve. All you're doing is trying to find out if people have got the problem. So if you start selling to people before they've established a need, then you come across as needy and so on. So it's a bit like, you know, you're the guy that goes to the party looking to marry anyone, any girl that you meet, rather than, hey, I wouldn't mind buying you dinner, finding out more about you to see if there's a good fit for us to take it further and get to know each other more before you jump into bed with them. Very similar to, you know, establishing client relationships and prospecting online. So, has anybody seen this video before? I think this was, where was it? Italy? If anyone knows where this was, let me know in the chat. This dude actually won this race by doing what he calls the Superman pose and becoming more aerodynamic and beating his counterparts. Well, it was France, that's right. That's France, wasn't it? So I thought this was an interesting anecdote to share with you, that sometimes in order to be successful, you've got to do what everyone else is not doing. Let's all keep in mind that 90%, if not more, of businesses are gone in 10 years. So as a general rule, if you follow what the rest of businesses are doing or the rest of business owners are doing, it's one of the surest ways you can fail at business, because 90% of them disappear in 10 years. So you want to look at what the 10% are doing, or the very few percent are doing differently, and follow that. And I'm going to share with you some of those things now. There's 2 reasons why people will buy from you. I believe, if anyone can think of another reason, please let me know in the comments. attention and trust. And this is particularly relevant in business to business. Okay, you look at brands like Apple, Nike, brands like that. If they get your attention, they're built up trust with you through their advertising, and you know what you're going to expect. And I think that you can use social media to establish both of these and get more people to buy from you. So that's the goal. You want to get attention and build trust. The problem is a lot of people will get attention, and whether they do it through paying for it or hacking the algorithm or getting their email address, but then they don't build trust. And so what happens is they get attention, lose attention, and then they have to get more attention, and then they lose attention. And they might get some transactions through it, but with social media, you want to build an audience. And so you get attention, establish trust. You don't lose the attention. You get more attention, trust, get more attention. That's how you build an audience for the long term, and that's how you build a brand. Xavier just made a comment. Let's share this one while I read it. I just published 3 minutes ago a post basing the last video, just talking about the problem, not about the solutions, just a CTA to my website. Let's see how it works. Okay, we're interesting to see how it goes. Just a quick note, if you do put a link in your post, typically it won't be shown to as many people. You may have put it in the comments, which is totally fine. But LinkedIn generally don't want people to leave LinkedIn. So if you put links in your posts, as general rule for all of you, then it won't get as much reach. But yeah, fantastic. I love that. Focusing on the problem, not the solution. I mean, at the end of the day, if the audience knew about the solution, they would have solved the problem already. Okay. All right. We'll keep moving, and then I'm going to get to some more of the questions in a minute. So lead generation can capture attention. So when you reach out to prospects and you're talking about connecting or messaging prospects, some of them will go, yeah, let's have a catch up. They're not all going to, but it doesn't mean that that's all you're using that connection for. They're in your network now. You've invited them to connect. They've given you consent that they be part of your network. They will start seeing your content, and you will start seeing their content. So you can start to build a relationship. I mean, if they're only getting, a couple of comments on the posts that you do, and, CEOs of big companies might only get a couple of comments, and you start to engage with their content, they're generally going to like you, and you'll build a relationship. And then if you post content as well that builds trust, over time, you'll find that it just snowballs. So 5 years ago, somebody that I sent a connection request to and then asked for an appointment, who did not respond, has now been seeing videos that I've posted for 5 years. I may have commented on some of their content. And so now they quite often, a lot of them do reach out to me. And so there's a lot of value in your social database. You're building an asset for your career and for your business. That social database, it's way more valuable than an email list. So at the end of 12 months, every 12 months, I clean my email list. And guess how many, what percentage of my email addresses are no longer valid after 12 months? It's 30%. That's how often people are changing their email addresses. So it's not as valuable to have yes, you've got a 20,000 people database, but it won't take longer than 4 or 5 years before that's down to, 1,000. My database is actually smaller than it was 5 years ago, but it's all clean, and they want to hear from me, which I think is much more valuable. So if you get attention and build trust, you are going to crush it. Okay, so why LinkedIn? 660 million members, 200 countries and regions worldwide. China's the fastest growing. Excuse me. So since Microsoft bought LinkedIn, Microsoft, keep in mind, people say, oh, Microsoft bought it because they're going to tap into all of LinkedIn's members. 660 million, I think, was less than $500 million when they bought it. Keep in mind, Microsoft have over 1 billion members of their own. So the opportunities for LinkedIn are actually way bigger. And they're starting to integrate with all the Office features. So LinkedIn's not going anywhere. They've just, introduced stories, which means that basically there's a trend. They're following the other social networks in terms of the features that drive engagement. So their objective is to get people to spend more time on the platform and become more engaged, which means the platform will become inherently more social. So, you know, taking off the professional hat, taking off your tie, and being a bit more personable will pay off. I think organic content has still got a while to go. I you know, changed my view on this. I thought it was going to follow the other platforms and reduce the reach of organic content. It has to some extent, but I don't think we're going to see it disappear, because you can't sponsor posts from personal profiles. So it would be silly for LinkedIn to either not introduce sponsored content on personal profiles or reduce organic reach, if that makes sense. Let's jump into one of the questions that we've got here from Karen. How about when you have a post on your company page? I'm experimenting and I know doesn't get much notice. Last night I posted the company page. Okay, great. So there's a couple of things that you've got to be mindful of when posting on a company page. First of all, does a company page have more followers than you have connections? If it doesn't, then it won't reach as many people. Also, you've got to keep in mind that on a company page, you can sponsor content. So LinkedIn does want you to put some money behind it, you know, so it's not going to necessarily get as much reach, I don't think, than from a personal profile. People also, you know, prefer to comment or engage with an individual rather than a company name. So where possible, I would post from your personal profile. You can have different strategies for both if you're happy to do both. If you've got the resources to do it, the company page could have, you know, updates about projects and developments, sharing customer stories, sharing the journey of the business, whereas your personal profile can literally be you documenting your process. And I think focusing on the culture of your organization, you know, and it might, if it's just you in the business, then the culture, you are the culture. But people connect with people connect with people that share values to them, you know. And so if you have a culture, you know, at your work environment, which is, you know, you guys have fun at work, or you do team building exercises, or every Friday you go out for lunch, like sharing that culture with your potential audience will make people like you and naturally want to do business with you. So your social network on LinkedIn, I mean, you should be connected to most of the people you know. If not, sync up your contacts, or, you know, find the people that you do business with and connect with them, because the value is really your second degree network, which is very similar to the whole tip of the iceberg scenario. So your first degree connections represent the iceberg above the water, and then below the water is the second degree network, which is your potential referral network. So all of a sudden you've got visibility over all your potential referrals. If you've got one client, if you've only got one client, you just started a business, you only got one client, for the sake of this example, you can see everyone he knows. So if he has 100 people, you can look through all their profiles. And if you're in business to business, it's quite easy to see which ones would be the ideal referral for you. And there's a couple of ways that you can approach them. One is you could ask your one client to introduce you. You could say, can you introduce me to this person individually, which you could never do before, by the way. If you wanted referrals in the past, you'd had to just say, do you know anyone that would like my services? And like they wouldn't be able to think of somebody off the top of their head necessarily. The second thing is you could just not even ask your client, and you could reach out to the person and say, hey, I noticed you're connected with this guy. He's a client of mine, and it looks like you know, you're in a similar field. I'd love to speak to you and learn more about what you're doing with your business. See if there's an opportunity for me to help. There's a huge amount of value there, because obviously, you know, we know hundreds of people, which means there's thousands and tens of thousands of people in our second degree network. Hey, Paul, good to hear from you, mate. Should I drop some connections? For example, I have a whole bunch of competitors. Should I remove them as connections? Look, there's not necessarily any benefit in removing them as connections unless you're engaging with their content and you don't want to see their content. Then maybe like unfollow them. If you get to 30,000 connections, then you need to, you know, like if you want to add more targeted ones, then you'd remove some. But it's not like LinkedIn is looking at the percentage of your network that engage. That's not how it works. So as long as I would just be focused, I'd be focused on the people that are relevant and growing more relevant people. I wouldn't be focusing so much on the people that aren't relevant. Competitors are, I think, can be valuable to have in your first degree network because they're likely to be connected with people in your target audience. If that makes sense. So I'd be focused on growing as opposed to retracting. I hope that's helpful, Paul. So there's a scoreboard in social media, right? People are like, oh, you're on Instagram. How many followers do you have? And it's very easy to get distracted in these sort of metrics. Like it's a big waste of time to be focused on getting the most people in your network or the most people to follow you. That's not how you grow a business. Like it's about having real relationships with real people, not just online, offline too. In fact, it's more important to have them offline. If you could have 20,000 offline friends that you could, you go to their city and they'd let you crash on the couch, that's way more valuable than any amount of connections on social media. So the question is, what's your relationship with these people? And that's why I love going after a niche, because if you go after a niche, then you can tailor your content to every single person that you connect with. If you focus on looking after dentists marketing, every piece of content is tailored towards that particular niche. And when they're looking for somebody to build their website, for example, or do their SEO, you've got all these website and SEO companies that all claim to convert the best and to be the best price and to rank at the top of the search results. Oh, and there's one for dentists. I'm a dentist. They stand out. So all it means is they're just going to read your proposal. They're going to consider you because you got something different. And you don't need thousands. You could get thousands of dentists as customers. You could very quickly become the leader in your area. It's people think that to get more business, you have to cast a wider net. And if you're using social media, that's the opposite of what you want to do, because the wider you go, the less relevant you will be to everyone. I love this GIF. Interrupting people, cold calling is something which people still, people still romanticize about and still put their hand up at seminars when I say, does anyone do cold calling? And they say, yeah, it works and all that sort of stuff. And when I say cold calling, I'm talking about just literally picking a number off Google or the phone book and calling them when you don't know anyone. What I suggest would be way more valuable is if you just spend 10 minutes before making that phone call, then go have a look at their LinkedIn profile, maybe even send them a request, read some of their content, just so that you know a little bit about them. So you imagine if someone calls you up and says, oh, hey, Karen, I've just read your article on LinkedIn about this. I thought that was really interesting. Hey, do you have a couple of minutes so I can ask you a couple of questions about your business? Way more valuable. That's what I consider that to be a warm call. And I think that when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn before messaging them, that's a warm message. It's not like a cold outreach. Whereas sending an email to somebody is a cold outreach. It's not something that I suggest will work particularly well. I think that the companies that are making emails work for them are using a huge volume. They're sending a huge volume of messages. And they're probably finding it's just as effective as cold calling, I would expect, unless they've got a really incredible offer. I can see it would work well in recruitment. Obviously, if someone's looking for a job, they'll be looking at it, but it shows up in a different inbox. I really think connecting and building authentic, real relationships is where it's at. If you're sending, this is an interesting one. If you're sending, upwards of 100 messages per week and you're not getting results, try sending 20. Send less, but spend the same amount of time on it. So spend the same amount of time looking at it. So if you rush it, and you can rush it if you know what you're doing and you are getting results and you've got a system and everyone meets the same criteria and the message script's relevant to all of them. But otherwise, you want to make it relevant, personalized, and show interest in something that the other person values. We've got any other questions? Yeah, that's a good point, Brian. I'll share that one. Could share posts from the company page to your personal. Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. I think this will help your company page visibility, but just keep in mind that it can't replace your own personal post, because when you share something, it doesn't get as much reach as when you post something organically, something that's is important to keep in mind. So if you look at this little chart here, the people that you're connected with on LinkedIn first, and in this scenario, you'd be connected with 3 people. Your second degree connections are the people that they're connected with. And then you've got your third level connections. So this is where the value of like having a premium account can come in handy, because you can reach some more third level connections and beyond. So you can imagine that if you, let's go back to the example of targeting dentists. If you do a search for dentists in, let's say you're in New York, and only 3 people show up, you could think to yourself, oh, look, I've only got 3 people. I've messaged those 3 people. Now I have to do a different industry. But what you'll find is when those 3 people accept the connection request, then all of those people in the second level connection column move to the first. So when you connect with the first 3, then you'll be able to access the next 10. And if you connect with all of those 10, then you'll be able to access all the people they're connected to. So what happens is every time you do the search in that industry, you get more people in the search results because you've connected with more people that are, in common with them. And so you'll find that you'll actually get to a point where, they might have 1,000 connections and you have 400 connections in common because you've connected with so many people in their industry, and they think, geez, what am I missing out on when I'm not being connected with this guy? And that's exactly what I did when I first used LinkedIn to generate leads when I was working for a web marketing agency 10 years ago, is I targeted medical practitioners. And it got to a point where I'd reach out to a plastic surgeon and he'd say, geez, you connected with 50 surgeons that I know in the industry. And so I became the online marketing specialist for medical professionals. And that's what it said on my profile. And so very quickly stood out in that industry, and that was very high value. They were A-grade clients. And so niching is really powerful. The easiest way to get more visibility is to get more connections. And as you grow your network, I mean, even if these 3 people were competitors of yours, it's likely that, their connections could be potential clients. Using applications, for example, Lucia, and getting numbers and calling. Look, it can definitely work. I think what's more, I think would be careful here. I think it can work. What would be better is if you connected with somebody and then got them to give you their phone number and were expecting a phone call. If you can do that, then they're going to be a lot more receptive on the end of the line. Depends what you're selling. I think if you're selling something that can be sold relatively easy over the telephone, then yeah, sure, get the numbers and go to town. But I think these days, it's quite difficult to get through to the decision makers in business to business. And I think you'll get a lot more out of it if you send them a message, they respond to it in their own time. But you just have to, the challenge is most people don't get that conversion. And so they try and hack their way to the phone number and stuff. But if you can get it right, it's really worthwhile in the long run. And it's not that difficult. It's just about showing interest in the other person. Key point of difference here. On other social media sites, you follow somebody, you go to their Instagram page. So if I've got an Instagram profile and I look at all the people following me, I didn't decide who they were. They just decided to follow me. So it could be anyone. Whereas on LinkedIn, if I look at my connection list, a lot of them, I invited them to connect. It's very different. Everyone likes to get invitations. No one likes to get followed home. Right? It's a big difference. I'd like to invite you to join my network, and you make it a customized invitation. It's a big difference, but they see your content. They then see your content. So you can choose what's in your network. Most people, they just log on to LinkedIn and they go, oh, look, I've got 10 connection requests. Accept. Now, what sort of people are going to be seeing their content? Salespeople and recruiters. It's naive to think that they're all going to be in your target audience. They're generally people that want, to get something out of it. Most people are trying to extract value out of the platform. They're there to especially on LinkedIn, to grow their careers and also to grow their business. And so if you are reactive, you're going to be, you're going to get lots of sales letters. You're going to get lots of people, offering you jobs and stuff. Whereas if you're proactive, like people say LinkedIn's rubbish for lead generation, or LinkedIn's, useless. All you get is sales letters, but they're not. They're blaming the platform because they haven't actually been proactive. It's like, well, you know what? LinkedIn's nothing wrong with LinkedIn. It's just your strategy. You could say TV advertising is rubbish. You could say, having bloody billboards and having people drop off letters to every single mailbox in your suburb could be bad as well. But if it's no strategy, of course it's not going to work. These things, LinkedIn has our attention, and the attention is under price. But people are looking at things like followers. They come to my workshops and they say, look, I've got 10,000 followers. I don't know why I need your help. And I think it's not like 10,000 followers couldn't be great. It could be, but I don't really know. Like, it doesn't give me any information. And that's what a lot of people are getting hung up on. So there's always a customer journey when we, well, I might just go straight into, I made Karen laugh. That's good. Bianca did it for recruitment. That's awesome. Let me see. I've got a question here. What are your thoughts on using application? Oh, so we got into that. And also, while we're on this topic, by the way, I just want to talk about automation quickly. If you are using any of the tools that automate a lot of this stuff, like, it's just something you've got to tread very carefully with, because I think that if you're not getting the conversions you want, it's tempting to do a huge volume, and therefore you'll get, more leads out of it. The key is to get the conversions right, is to make it more targeted, because if you get that bit right, you won't piss people off in the process, and you won't have to keep building new attention. So I think automation is something that you only want to look at if you're getting really good conversion rates already, and that every message is going to be very crisp and targeted, because the last thing you want is people getting messages through that are not relevant. It will harm your reputation. It's not worth it. Is it advisable to send out your tech solution brief within the connection request in order to only have those prospects accept who might be specifically interested in finding out more? They won't read it. No, like until they've established an interest in it, you don't want to give them any information. So it's more so like, okay, so who does the tech solution brief suit? And then what are the questions that you can ask to find that out? So I would connect with them if they fit the profile, and then say, I would suggest speaking to them and say, mind if we hop on a call? I just want to ask you a few questions to see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. And then you basically, off the back of that call, then, you ask them and say, would it be okay if I send you my tech solution brief? And you get a commitment, then they're expecting it, then they'll read it. Otherwise, people's attention span's too short to send them something unsolicited. Even if it's fantastic, they're just not likely to look at it because they haven't, said that they need it, or they've established that they're interested in it. When LinkedIn recommends whom to follow, does this make a difference to my social selling index? Look, the social selling index, I'm not, like, it's a thing that LinkedIn used to improve engagement with people that are using the platform. And so, like, it'll tell me I'm in top 1% of whatever, but it's just like an equation. I don't know how it works. And I think that it probably evolves as well. So I don't really know. I don't see why it would be relevant to how you're performing as a social seller. I think they're just looking at how engaged you are on the platform. All they're trying to do is get people to, engage more on the platform. It's a bit like when they say, "Oh, you're trending for hashtag business." You're like, "Oh," people call me up and say, "Oh, my Nathaniel, my post is trending," and I say, "Okay, yeah, what does that mean?" Well, it means that, for the hashtag business, my post is the one that's trending. Okay, but could it not be possible that LinkedIn is trying to encourage people to post more content, and so it's going to tell people that they're trending, or everyone that they're trending, occasionally? I think if we use hashtags, I bet we've all been told we're trending at some point in time. And I've noticed that on the posts that they've told me I've been trending for, I'm not getting any more views than the other ones. I honestly think that some of these things are just used to drive more engagement because people think, oh, I'm getting traction here. And it's it's just like people feel good when they're getting more followers and they got a good social selling index and they're trending. But at the end of the day, what does that really mean? Like, it just, these are just things that LinkedIn tell you to encourage you to keep posting. Like, if you haven't posted before on LinkedIn and you do your first post, LinkedIn give you like this massive boost, so you get heaps more exposure on your first post, so that you come back and do more posts. Yeah, absolutely. What we got here? Oh, yeah. So that's cool. Questions amongst the audience. I'm just making sure I haven't missed one of the important ones here. All right, cool. Thanks for all the questions, guys. That's awesome. There you go. Paul's had the same experience. All right. So look, when you people searching for your name on Google, the sites which are likely to show up at the top are social media sites, and LinkedIn's obviously a great one. If you haven't customized your URL, that'll make a big difference in whether or not you are showing up at the top. Use your first and last name in the URL if you can. But when somebody's searching for your name, generally, they could be towards the latter end of the buying cycle. So, if somebody's researching, finding a LinkedIn training provider, and they've got 3 names on their list, and they're at a point of narrowing them down, and they search for my name, that search is really important part of the customer journey, because we've already got their attention. We've got a relative amount of trust because they've narrowed it down. And then you want to control what they find in the search results. I encourage you all to do the Google test. I think most people do it these days. Find out what's on the first page of the search results and make sure you're controlling it. Because if you've got like majority of the first page of the search results, chances are your competitors won't. So you definitely stand out as a more reputable provider. Excuse me. But having a CV like on your profile doesn't do wonders for building client relationships. Make sure it's written for the customer. I think a lot of the time we spend so much time trying to find ways to grow our network and outreach, generate leads, post content. We forget that we haven't updated our profile in a couple of years. So I think profile is the most important part, because people will always look at it as part of the process. What do you think is the best method to convert connections to first appointments calls in financial services such as retirement planning or general investments? So there's a couple of things there. With financial services, if you focus on partners, you'll get lots of meetings, and it's about having a strategy to convert those partners into actually giving you referrals, like lawyers and accountants and guys like that. You're very easy to get appointments. So that's one way. Another way is go after a niche. So if you're in financial services, why not focus on people that are in the tech sector, for example? Tech sector, they generally have there's a lot of IPOs, and a lot of them have shares in the companies and things like that. So if you were a specialist in the tech sector for financial services, when you reach out to somebody, you could say, oh, look, I see you're in the tech sector. I've got a lot of experience. I'd love to find out more about you, to see if there's an opportunity for me to help. But I wouldn't go specific into retirement planning or investments, because keep it quite open-ended, because quite often they wouldn't know generally what investment products or financial products they need. But if they are with a financial advisor, they're probably finding that they're not getting as much attention as they'd like. There's not many people that wouldn't say that about their financial advisor. So if you focus on, I'm a specialist in the tech sector, then I think that they will be open to just having a chat and learning more. But if you don't make it too much about the products, and you make it more about just having a conversation to find out what their goals are financially, and what they're doing about it, and offering some value, they're more likely to chat to you. But just focus on the people with a high income, so that you don't waste your time. So people in the tech sector, from Amazon, Google, Xero, and go to people who are chairman or board of directors or CEO or executive teams. They're likely to have a bit more till in the bank. All right. So just to give you some ideas, when people come through to your profile, like I think this photo's changed now. That was a bit cheesy, I find, but like have a professional photograph. That's where the eye goes first. Your background should either build credibility or build rapport. So if you've got like a picture of you speaking or with an industry influencer, or showcasing some awards or something that you've achieved, then that builds social proof, builds credibility. It's also a place you could have a call to action, like a free ebook or something like that. That's also cool. If you haven't got any of those things, like quite often for clients, what we'll do is if they're targeting, say, Sydney, for example, is we'll have an aerial of the Sydney skyline. So when somebody coming through who's from Sydney, they see it, it's familiar, they live there, and it's something you have in common. And so it builds rapport, makes them feel relaxed. It's very subtle psychological thing. But if you the more you can relate to the person that you're targeting, the better. So little things, nuances like that will make a big difference. Is my book available as an audiobook? No, it's not. It's a great idea. We should do that. Fantastic. Love that. I am going to make note of that for sure. But do check out the Nathanial Bibby podcast. There's a lot of really good content on there, on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you like to listen on. For the last 6 to 12 months, I've been putting all my best content there because I think it's really valuable to be able to consume content while you're, walking the dog, in the car. So I've focused on putting my best content there. So definitely check out the Nathanial Bibby podcast if you're interested. Okay, here's an example. Sydney skyline, exactly the example I use. Mark Dinoya, he joined me on Monday Night Live on Monday, client of mine. He does exceptionally well on LinkedIn. Another client is pictured with the team there. Just to give you some more ideas, this is the founder of a electric bike company who did some fundraising on LinkedIn with us, raised $1 million in 6 weeks, which was a fantastic result. Okay, a few tips to help you convert more leads from your message. Okay, I'm going to chuck this up there and I'm going to quickly grab a glass of water while you're reading it. I think that we need to keep the message short. And in order to do that, we need to be very clear in what we want them to do next. The moment you start giving them options is the moment you lose them. Like, it's very confusing when somebody's like, oh, well, look, if you want me to email you, give me your email address. If you want me to call, if you want my website, here it is. If you want to see some of our videos here, oh, by the way, see this news article. It's way too much. So we think about, okay, what's my objective here? What do I want to achieve? And if your objective is to speak to them, that should be the only thing you ask for. What's your phone number? Nothing else. And be very direct. Like, if you are raising money for like investments, for example, say, hey, I've looked at your profile. I can see that you've used the word investor in your bio. I would like to share an opportunity with you if it's a good fit. Do you mind if we have a call so I can find out a bit more about your investment criteria? Be very clear, to the point. Too much, like, say be polite, thank you, regards, and all that kind of stuff, but don't overdo it. Like, you don't want to come across as needy, so keep it very brief. Like, I hope you're having a good day. Thank you for connecting with me. I appreciate, like, just focus on one of those introductory statements, not too much. Don't overdo it. It looks like you're trying too hard otherwise. And emojis, right? Because on other social platforms, they're quite popular, right? And they're cool, the messages. But on LinkedIn, the problem is if you start putting in like emojis and smiley faces, it just looks like you're trying too hard. And in professional context, I think that it can devalue your brand. Once people know you, it's different. You can do that. But I think keep it very professional while, not professional is probably not the right word, but don't try to put too much fluff on it. Keep it very simple and keep anything that's like down to objectivity or opinions or thoughts or, you know, anything funny, just save it for, you know, when you're speaking to them on the phone rather than putting it in a message. I think that works much better. Oh, you guys are going to get a live example of how we generated a ton of leads for a business. So this lady, Maureen, she sells Australian real estate to people that live in Singapore. She's got an agency in Singapore. This is a text message she sent me a few days after we started working for her. She doubled her network and already had 10 qualified leads. This is how we did it. 3-step strategy: find, connect, and engage. Find people in your target demographic to connect with, and the measure there, it's always important to measure results, is the number of connection requests that you send. And then you connect, obviously, and then there's a number of people, like if you send 200 connection requests, maybe only 100 accept. It's totally fine. It's just so you know those numbers so that you can, if there's a problem, you can know which area to improve, and you know, I think it's, if you don't measure stuff, and you ask people if it's working, they're like, yeah, like I've got something from it. Oh yeah, what'd you get? Like how many, you know, they don't know. And so it's very difficult for me to say, well, this is how you improve it. This is the problem area. This conversion rate's not, you know, is working as well as it was 6 months ago. So measure it. And then engage, which is basically sending the messages. And then there's a volume of leads, which is what you measure. And then obviously, like from those leads, Maureen can measure internally, like how many transactions did you get? What was commission? And then all of a sudden she knows, okay, if I'm giving Nathaniel $2,000 a month and it's making me $150,000 in commissions, that, you know, I would like to spend as much money with Nathaniel as I can so I can scale my business. That's pretty much the way it works. That's how you scale a business. You find something you can throw money into for marketing that will bring you a return on investment, and then you just scale it. These are the numbers. So in the first 30 days, we sent 500 requests, 277 accepted, and 42 leads. So the call to action was, would you like to come to a property seminar that we're having? And 42 people showed up. So we targeted, because it's like real estate, it's B2C almost. We targeted people that were having the job title CEO, but lived in Singapore, that went to university in Australia. So they've got a connection with Australia because she's selling Australian real estate, right? Their CEOs are likely to have a good income, and they're living in Singapore. So obviously, you know, they can come to the seminar. And 42, very qualified, and she did that every month for, well, I know she did for a number of months as a main lead generation source, and it transformed her business. Is it best to email or message them directly on LinkedIn first? If you connect with them and they accept your connection request, then they've basically said it's okay to message me. So I'd message them on LinkedIn, unless they've given you their email address. If they've given you the email address and they said, you know, then email them, then take it off of LinkedIn. It's if you haven't spoken to them before, you'll get a higher conversion rate from LinkedIn than you will from email, because you know, so much junk in email, whereas social media, like they're going to check the messages, all the messages, and they're more likely to respond. I mean, it's not like it was 6-7 years ago where I'd message the CEO of Barry Plant, and this is literally what happened. I said, you know, I've got some ideas of what you could do with your marketing at Barry Plant, and he said, oh, a LinkedIn message. Haven't had one of those before. Sure, come in. I mean, obviously that doesn't happen anymore. However, most of the people that are sending messages are sending rubbish. So I think you can stand out from the crowd. So yeah, I'd message them on LinkedIn first. A lot of people grow their networks on LinkedIn, take the email addresses, and then start emailing them. I think to myself, well, you're going from a high converting platform, taking the data out and moving to a low converting platform. So the conversion rate on LinkedIn is around 15% on average with the campaigns that we run, whereas email is more like 3 or 4%. So it's about 5 times higher on LinkedIn. I'm giving you some of the message scripts that we've used here. This is content that I normally share with my LinkedIn Insider members. So you're getting some free value here. which we normally provide to us, to our membership program. So, hi, Mike. I've read through what you do, and there seems to be a lot of synergies with the business we like to work with. I was wondering if you'd be free for a chat so I can learn a bit more about what you're doing at Bibby Consulting Group. Obviously, insert company here, and see if there's a fit with our partnership program. What's your diary like next week? So very brief, right? So the first statement is, I've taken the time to look at what you're doing. So I've shown interest in them. And then I go straight into asking for the chat. I want to find out more about X and X so I can see if there's a fit, and then asking what your diary is like next week. Another case study here. This is an interior fit out company for commercial. Below is a sample. Yeah, so they sent out 241 requests in the first 30 days, 183 accepted. So quite good conversion rate. 75% of the requests got accepted. They all received a follow-up message. 75 leads, 41%, huge conversion rate, massive. And this is based on, how targeted we were, and also like the brand. So how good the profile was. I mean, it would have had a professional photo, compelling headline, professionally copywritten, and that's the difference it can make. Because you can imagine if it was only 4%, it's 7 leads, 41%, 75 leads. So it's worth getting your profile optimized professionally so that you can get all those extra leads. It really makes a big difference. Mentor young entrepreneurs. So to find young entrepreneurs, you can, there's a number of ways that you can do it. I would first of all look at joining university groups, connecting with young people, so that the second degree connections are more likely to be youngsters. I would search for job titles like owner and founder. Things like that are likely to be smaller businesses starting out in their career. You can't search by age. You can search on Sales Navigator by how long they've been in their profession. But if you search by university year, you might be able to. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I think Brian had a good suggestion. Yeah, they'll start flowing in. That's right. Because if you connect with some young people, 100 young people, then your second degree network will be younger, won't they? Do you think that there may need to be more steps in different countries? I guess you're talking about the lead generation process. No, I don't think so. I really don't. There's been a lot of LinkedIn specialists which put in, more steps. And I think that if you do that, you come across less confident, more needy. And I just find the conversion rates the same for the same, I think that by doing it this way, you're not tarnishing the relationship for future as well. It's like asking them if they want to have a discussion. If they don't respond, it's not like you've built any negative brand sentiment. Whereas if you're sending multiple messages, you may do. And just keep in mind that they will have the opportunity to see your content, even if they haven't caught up with you. So they might be like, oh, who's this guy? I'm not going to catch up with him. But then, start to see his content. Oh, that's quite valuable. That's interesting. And then later on down the track, you might find that they change their mind. As you heard me say, LinkedIn profile is the most important part of this whole process. So to help you implement some of the profile optimization steps that we use, when we optimize profiles, our service is $1,200 plus GST Australian. I'll give you our internal system for nothing. So on our website, if you go to the resource section, so it's bibbyconsultinggroup.com.au then you just click on resources and you'll see the profile checklist there. In fact, I'll show you while we're on the call if you like. So go to Bibby Consulting Group, resources, profile checklist. There you are. You can have the 18-step checklist that we use to optimize profiles. Oh, sorry, you can't see that, can you? Because it's on the other window. My bad. Sorry, so you go to Bibby Consulting Group, go to resources and profile checklist, which is just there. You got this, guys. I hope you found that webinar valuable. Off the cuff, we're almost at an hour. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dr. Gareth Dakar, for being here. Thanks, Karen Lee Morrison, Brian Gara, Elena. Awesome to have you here. Thanks for engaging. Thanks for all your questions. Afghan, Priyanka, great to see you guys here. You guys are always very active on LinkedIn. It's great to see you guys on the call. Bit ad hoc. I'm going to do more of these because I think it was really valuable for you guys to hop on and ask questions. For anyone watching the replay, I will be keeping an eye on these comments. So please do drop any requests that you have for future content, and have a fantastic rest of the week in business. Speak to you soon.